All right, good evening. My name is Mary Maslowski. We're going to open the November 7th, 2018 special meeting of the Historic District and Historical Commission. Holding the meeting at 732 Main Street in Town Hall in Harwich in the Griffin Room. As required by law, the town may audio or video record this meeting. Any person intending to either audio or video record the open session is required to inform the chair at this time. Hearing none, I'd like to just start with a roll call.
Julie Aldridge.
Bob Doan.
Gail Carroll.
Brendan Lowney.
And we have Jean Steiner on teleconference. Can you hear us, Jean? I am here, yes. Great. So we're going to reopen. First item of business is to reopen the public hearing for HH 2018-19. It's a notice of intent that was received for 20 Davis Lane, map 8, parcel N2-0 in the R-L zone. The application proposes the 100% demolition of a single-family dwelling. The application is pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 40C, Section 6, and the Code of the Town of Harwich, Chapter 131, Historic Preservation, Article 2. Paul Vassell is the owner applicant. I'd like to thank you for continuing. We had continued from our last meeting so that some folks could have the opportunity to take a look at the property. So I thank you for that. Please start.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Attorney William Kroll representing Paul Vassell. So I just asked, did the members get a chance that wanted to visit? Did they get a chance to see the property?
Yes.
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 And I'm assuming Mr. Bradley's not going to be with us tonight?
Don't believe Mr. Bradley is coming. I've not heard either way, unfortunately.
And Mr. Lowney's not a voting member tonight, correct?
Correct.
On this, so that it would be
5.
and we would need 4 out of 5?
Correct.
Okay. I think, if I recall correctly, at the end of the last hearing, the chairman polled the members as to whether they had any questions, and I don't think there were any questions. It was just a matter of Mr. Bradley and Mr. Doan, I believe, said that they wanted to visit the property and see it. Happy to answer any questions. I can go back through my whole spiel again if you would like. But I reviewed last time the elements of the Historic Commission code and bylaw regarding taking jurisdiction and or finding non-significance, and whether the commission would impose a 1-year demolition delay. And we acknowledged that the structure was apparently built in the 1750s or thereabouts, so that's not an issue. But we did say that there's nothing, to our knowledge, that took place there, anybody that owned it, or any historical significance to any events or people or particular architectural style. And I reviewed the engineering report by Coastal Engineering, which outlined all of the numerous faults at this point concerning the property, and that the conclusion was that it's a life safety issue, a health and safety issue. And there's mold, there's things falling down, falling apart. I hope it was obvious when you saw it, when you went through it, that it's not in good condition. And it's not, in my client's opinion, an economically feasible renovation. And not something, he's talked with his builder, and it's not something that you wouldn't be able to move this property without it imploding due to its dilapidated condition. So moving's not an option, and renovating is not economically feasible. And that leaves us with a 1-year demolition delay, which, in my opinion, it would not make a lot of sense. because Mr. Vassal's willing at this point to demolish it and replace it with a, as he has shown you in the past, with a first-rate quality new dwelling on the property, as opposed to letting this sit and be a health and safety hazard for another year. So I think that's an important aspect of this. And he would ask that you not impose the one-year demolition delay and find that this is ripe, this property is ripe for demolition. Thank you.
Thank you. I will just reiterate, this is under the demolition delay bylaw. Our vote is either a yes vote to allow the demolition as detailed in the application, or a no vote, which would allow us to impose the 12-month demolition delay. And for the edification of our newer members, that strictly will hold Mr. Vassal up for the 1 year, and in 12 months, if nothing was done with that house, he would be able to demolish it on 1 year and a day afterwards. That being said, I'm happy to start with my comments. I obviously did take a look at the property from the outside. I did read the coastal engineering report, and unfortunately, to my non-builder eye, but it did look like it matched the engineering report. And unfortunate to see a house in such dilapidated condition, but I understand you're coming to it newly, so unlike some others in the past that are just through neglect over time by the same owner. So I didn't really have any other questions other than that. I did appreciate the opportunity to really go by and take the look. Does anybody else have any comments on the board?
If I may, just quickly.
Sure.
Because Ms. Steiner, am I saying that right?
Yep.
Can she hear us okay? Do we?
Yep.
anyone
Jean,
check?
can you hear us?
I can, kind of fade in and out, but
Okay,
I'm
all
happy
right,
to
that's
tell you. what
Technical thing,
I
I'm
thought.
sorry.
Okay.
Sure.
If you want me to go now.
Sure, why don't you go next then, please?
I went down there twice. I drove in once and parked in the driveway and took some pictures, and then I went back and I parked at Bank Street Beach, and I walked down the road, and I got a whole kind of different feeling. I mean, I know that the building is very dilapidated. I would agree to that. I did not go inside. I walked around it. I mean, you could see on the outside that there is, it was a charming house. And I think that street is very iconic of Old Harwich and Old Cape Cod, and even the places that are either new or have been restored, they're very in keeping with the size and the scale. So that's something that I feel is very important. The other thing I thought about as I was looking at it from the streetscape, there are huge, beautiful old trees that just you can't ignore when you look at the property. And I would hate to think that those would also have to be demolished if we did vote to allow the demolition.
Thanks, Jean. Anyone else with comments or questions?
Agree 100% with Jean about the trees, especially that one tree.
There's that one huge tree in
It's
the
a beautiful
front.
tree. The only caution is that these days, with the new septic system, with the Board of Health, everything's at the surface and it's flattened out, and you have to have a big, wide area to put a septic system in. But
All the neighbors have said the same thing, you know, I do everything I can to
Keep the
save that tree, so.
Yeah. Your septic system's right where the tree is, basically.
Of course it is.
That's why
It's
it's
grown
growing so well, right?
so well.
Well, we just found a new septic system, which is good news potentially. That these folks did put a septic system in the early 90s, and there is one there in the back. So we may not have to put it in the front, which is great for the root system, so.
So Bob, did you have any comments?
Yeah, if you demolish it, do you have any plan to capture some of the items, some of the architectural features, interior?
Only with the rest of the street, to be honest with you. I mean, you know, I don't know that there'll be dental molding on the outside. I could easily do that and agree to that, but absolutely. I mean, it's,
But things like the doors and things, would there be you may not want to use them in the new house, obviously, but is there someone, I mean, the people
the
want these?
portico in front, for sure, you know, because that dental molding on the portico does match the side of the house. You know, so definitely things like that. It's a two-story house, just like the one that's there. But we would move it into the legal building footprint as well, because it's down right on my neighbor's property line in the back. But that's just a garage anyway.
Yeah. No, but I'm thinking of, you know, hardware and things. I mean, there's usually people who want that stuff because they resell it.
Yep.
For restoration. Is there, I don't know if you have ever thought of having someone go in or remove some of those things when it's being demolished?
The hardware, we will do that, and the doors that
Yeah.
are salvageable.
Right.
The problem with some of the interior doors is that they're
Oh, they're short, yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
But the exterior doors, you know, for sure, if they're salvageable. I've done that before in my project on Braddock Street, saved the doors, had them dipped in hyannis, and they're awesome.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
high quality.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know how old that dental molding is. It's certain, it's not original.
Right,
to
but
the
I mean, you can,
house, but
that can
I
be,
mean,
that can be replaced, and obviously they still make it, so, and I love that look, so.
Yeah, yeah. One thing I observed, which was really interesting, is that when I first looked at the house, I assumed it was a classic full cape from that period where dormers were added on in the front. Looking at it, there wasn't something right with it. The windows on the right are 9/6, and the windows on the left front are 12/8. I believe that is two different houses put together, two half capes, or it was a half cape and an addition put on with different windows and different things at the time, whatever was in style. Of course, the back of the building, everything from going back, I don't know what age, some of it must be pretty old, and then it gets newer and newer as you go backwards, I think. So it's hard to tell, but I do think that it is not a true full cape. And the other thing that was wrong with it is it doesn't have a center chimney. All full capes had center chimneys. The chimney on the right hand, there's one there, which would be typical for a Cape half house
Right.
on the side. And then the one on the left is way outside, which is, I don't know what that is. It's just, it was done, I think, quite a bit of time afterwards. And it was also interesting, they must have had on the kitchen, because when you look at the side, it's actually almost a salt box look, where they extended the roof so it's lower in the back on one side than the front, and it's lost its Greek revival look on that side. But the other side, the Greek revival was preserved. So just interesting how over time they added dormers and extra rooms and everything. It's it's a very interesting house, and 50 years ago, it must have been a lot of fun, certainly for kids to run through that house.
That's what the neighbors tell me.
You know, because all kinds of places to hide and everything else, so.
Did you go in it?
I went in the first floor.
You, okay, I didn't,
Snuck in.
I was not gonna go near it. I
Yeah,
walked
That's as far
around.
as I went too.
I just
Yeah, I
walked
just
around.
kind of looked in a little bit, okay.
Peeked in the window, but that
Wasn't
was
that
it.
adventurous, but yes.
My neighbors have been through it, though, which is great, because they
Really?
took all their childhood mementos and things they remembered, and,
Really?
you know,
Yeah, it is a
haven't
shame.
signed a waiver, I probably should have, but that's fine.
No, I didn't even go in.
Brendan, did you have any questions, comments?
Not really. I was able to walk around the property and, you know, what coastal engineering put together here is, it's very accurate to what's going on there. I'm a contractor and, you know, to me, anything can be fixed.
Right.
But with that said, everything I think we talked about, trying to move the property, trying to rehab it, you know, bring it up to code. I think there's a lot of challenges there. So it's a tough vote. I guess I'm glad I'm not voting. But it's the life safety issue, not so much in the mold issues, but when you finally abate all that and you get inside, structurally, there's going to be some issues as well, I'm sure. So there's definitely some challenges there, but something to think about.
If I can make one last comment, you know, if I had assurances, I would maybe take a shot at it, but the problem is, and having been in the renovation and renovating these houses in Harwich, when you get behind walls, you always find that extra, $100,000 or whatever that, you gotta do this, otherwise, you're not gonna get your framing, sign off and things like that. And I just can't afford to do it. I can't afford to do it. And I plead to the board to not make me wait another year. But that's all I'll say, I guess.
The walls you'd have to replace all the walls. I mean, I think there's some of the basic structures probably all right, other than in the back where it's totally rotted out. And that one wall, I don't know what's going on with that.
Well, yeah,
That ripple.
even the gable end where the
Yeah.
windows are projected out 4 inches.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
There's-
that's
Stuff
not
is like
good.
starting to.
There's no,
set in.
so
Yeah, no, it's not good.
it'd be a challenge.
Okay. So, any other comments from people in the audience? We're still in our public hearing.
Good evening. Barbara Nickerson, 37 Bayview Road, Harwich Port. Yes, I'm back. So I guess a couple things which I can understand from a structural standpoint, from a cost standpoint, that the vote is probably going to go one way. And the house is in disrepair. I'm not telling you it's not, and I won't tell you that it doesn't cost more money to rehabilitate and restore old houses. But I'm also going to tell you, I mean, aren't you tired of all these 1700s and early 1800s houses being torn down in Harwich Port? I mean, what's going to be left? The stuff that they're building in the 21st century or the late 20th century? And no offense, Mr. Cape Associates, but, there's just no charm to these houses that were being built nowadays. And, and Mr. Vassal knew what he was getting into when he purchased that house. You spent a lot of money for it. You're trying to sell the lot right now. I mean, you've told the neighbors 1 minute you're going to build it and have 25 people sleeping there for the Witchmere weddings and take the tree down. Now you're not going to do that. So, I don't know what to believe anymore as far as what you're saying, whether or not you're going to live there. It's still on the Realtor.com. It's still on the website, but the sign out front was taken down. I guess that maybe shows a little bit better that you're serious about it. However, it's still out there for sale. I guess my point, as I ramble about this, is the fact that you're always going to have issues with 200-plus-year-old houses. I mean, I have issues at this age that I didn't have 30 years ago, for crying out loud. So if you expect it to be a piece of cake when you buy a piece of property for $1.1 million and expect to just be able to go ahead and fix the house up for a couple $100,000, you're crazy. It's not going to happen. But, it does cost more money, but doesn't mean that it's not habitable in the future, that it can't be done. I told you last time, we just did it to a 1796 house on Main Street. It can be done. I didn't have sills. I didn't have this. I had asbestos. I had mold. I had it all. But, it's going to happen with any old house. So where do you draw the line on what's worth saving or not saving when you go for a demo delay? I mean, you've got the house in West Harwich, which was, the owner was very neglectful in letting it get like that. Well, guess what? The owner previous to Mr. Vassal, not his fault that it was neglected, but it was neglected. Same scenario. The older lady died and her family didn't care about it, so they just let it sit there and rot away. So I guess my point is that I guess I'm just tired of people coming into town and wanting to take down old houses that have been supportive of this community, are the fabric of this community, and put up their new McMansions and their new houses and everything so that it looks like a cookie cutter. And before we know it, I guess we're going to look like downtown Hyannis and Yarmouth.
Anyone else with any comments? Okay, hearing none. Any additional questions from the board?
No.
So, the chair would entertain a motion to close the public hearing if this board is ready to make its decision.
So moved. Close the public hearing.
Mr. Doan has made a motion to close the public hearing. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Eldridge. So motion's been made and seconded to close the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition? Hearing none, it is 4-0, and Mr. Lowney is abstaining from this one,
That's
correct?
Mhm.
Jean? I'm sorry, Jean?
Mary, I didn't hear the whole motion.
Okay.
Could you just repeat it into
Sorry.
the phone, please?
Yeah, and actually, my fault. We actually have to do a roll call vote because you're on the phone. So Mr. Joan made a motion, Julie Eldridge seconded it to just close the public hearing. So, Julie?
Oh, then I agree to that.
Okay, so we're just going to take a quick roll call vote. Julie?
What am I voting?
Yes or no to close the public hearing?
Oh, yes.
So Julie is a yes. Mr. Doan?
Yes.
Is a yes.
Yes.
Gail?
Yes.
I am a yes. And Jean, you said you were a yes?
Yes.
Okay. So we have 5-0 to close the public hearing. We have 1 abstention with Mr. Lowney. Okay. That being said, the public hearing is closed. So the chair would entertain a motion on the application. As I had mentioned earlier, a yes vote can permit the demolition to go forward in accordance with the application. A no vote will allow us to impose the 12-month demolition delay. So would anyone like to make a motion?
I make a motion to say yes for the demolition.
So Mrs. Eldridge has made a motion to approve the application for a demolition delay?
Oh, no, to go through.
No,
I'm
to
sorry.
approve the application for the demolition.
Take that back.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Mr. Doan has seconded the motion.
Motion was to approve the demolition,
To approve the application for
so,
demolition.
yes.
Okay, we have a motion made and a second to approve the demolition as detailed in the application. Is there any discussion before we take a vote? Hearing none. Julie?
What am I saying? 'Cause I'm so new to this.
It's a yes vote will allow the demolition, a no vote will impose the demolition delay. So Julie Eldridge is a yes. Mr. Doan?
Yes.
Yes. Gail?
All right, yeah, yes.
Jean?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. And Mr. Lowney has an abstention. Okay, so that is 5-0. Thank you all.
Thank you.
We'll get them the information at the building department.
Thanks for your time. As my neighbors took the insides as much as they could, you know, I'm offering them to take any other stuff as well. I like some of the doorknobs as well, so, I mean, those will be taken, but of course with care and carefulness, right? But thank you very much for your time again,
Thank you.
and we'll see you again, I'm sure. Thank
Good
you.
luck.
Good luck,
Thank you.
yeah.
Be here. Thank you very much. We do not have anything else on our agenda. I did just want to point out that we had talked at the last meeting, I think it was in connection with this hearing, we had talked about November 15th. We do not have a meeting on November 15th. We have a meeting on November,
December.
Yeah, because
It's not
of
till
Thanksgiving. It was going to
December now.
fall right before.
So I think we
That
moved it
Wednesday.
to December 5th.
we moved our November 21st meeting to December 5th. Okay. I will have to double check that because we actually have 3 hearings, so we'll have to check on the publications. But I will do that in the morning.
Can I make a request to add some discussion on the next agenda concerning the wording of the demolition delay so that my concern is the demolition delay,
Mind to speak up for Jean?
well, I'm trying to word this. The application to demolish the house has been approved.
Mhm.
And that goes along with the sale to a new person.
That is correct.
And I would really like to see if we can't word it so that if that is sold, the new owner would have to reappear and,
Would not be the same, be the same
Can you do that,
application
though?
way.
So,
No.
it does work that way in other areas.
so I don't want to actually get too far afield, but I understand your comment. I really think it's more in the field of seeking a legal opinion.
Well, I think we have,
I
and
think
it
we
was
did.
talked about rewording, and we could go to town meeting.
Yeah, it would have to go to
Right.
town meeting.
Oh, yeah, I understand
So
that.
it's, so we're talking a bylaw change is what you're actually talking about.
Exactly. And I would like to just get into some discussion about that to see
Mhm.
Sure.
if that's if feasible. I mean, we've talked about extending the demolition delay,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is probably not a great idea, because a year seems ample time to either.
Mhm.
So during that time, the owner would go, or people can do investigations and see if like the property has had any sort of special occurrences there or anything? Is that, I'm just curious, is that what it's?
In a perfect world, it is to give the owner the opportunity to seek alternatives.
Okay,
In reality, it's a 12-month delay.
okay.
And this is Jean, and in some instances, we have seen where people have worked
Right.
with the
Mhm.
commission
Yep.
to
Mhm.
look at options. Either the Snow Inn was one that came to mind, although
Yep.
that didn't go to fruition. But didn't we, Gail, have a legal opinion on that when
Well-
we were looking at the Chase House in West Harwich? Was it the Chase House, the one where they were going to put in all those, the housing behind it?
So I'm happy to,
Something about the fact that that had to extend to the purchaser of the property?
Yeah, well, we did have, the way our bylaw is worded, that is the case. But I think that maybe there's, I mean, I
We can
know
always
we
do
have to go
something-
to town meeting
we can always do something with a bylaw.
to
and-
reword it, right?
And bylaws can be changed, and it would have to go, it is technically a zoning bylaw, so it would also
Right.
have to go to planning board.
Mhm.
It will have to go to Board of Selectmen. It will have to go through public hearings, but certainly we can start working on that.
I think that makes sense, because that will give a message that this is a serious kind of endeavor, and it's not, to the real estate community, that it's
Right.
not something that we're just going to automatically approve if a house is let to go into such a ruined situation.
So I think that's a fine idea. We can start working on that. I do think it's too late for May town meeting.
And that's
Because
fine,
of the,
but
just
we-
because we're in November already.
And I understand
And I just
that,
want to,
too.
I just want to throw that out there,
Right.
that let's get started on that. So if a couple of people want to, if we want to do a little subcommittee, so some people can start working on it
Mhm.
and go from there, be happy to. Let's put that on the agenda for the
Good.
next meeting, and we can start working on it.
Good.
I
Because if
I
we
have my
don't-
own, I have my own concerns with some sections of the bylaw
Mhm.
myself, so I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, cleaning it up might be what will happen.
Mhm.
Adding other language to
Sure.
do, that might be, I mean, that's the ideal. But I think that
So if I
if we
may-
don't start discussion, it never happens. Because we got that legal opinion, how long ago, Bob?
Well, that was 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And that
And
was
here
going to be
we-
my question, how long ago
And
was that
here we
legal
are,
opinion?
we sit,
Nothing's been
And do you
done.
remember who did that legal opinion?
It was the town.
yeah,
the
whoever
I
the
think it was
town,
Copeland and Page.
Yeah.
It was the town attorney at the time.
right, I think it
think
was,
so.
Bob. I have it somewhere in my paperwork that we had to do
Okay.
a
it
written
is-
request.
Jean?
Jean?
Yeah, I would be happy to help with that too. And I have another question that's kind of in the same vein, and maybe somebody can clarify this for me. Is there anything in the town laws that prevents them from letting a house like go into such disrepair, and I'm thinking of one on, I think it's on Bayview Road, where there's like a
Yep.
tree that's
Yep,
Yeah, it's for
going
sale,
into the
actually.
wood,
Mhm.
into the roof of it.
yep.
And how does that just, I mean, just get, is it in the state, or is that what happens, or, I mean, isn't there anything that requires you to keep something in good repair?
Only if you have a mortgage on it.
Yeah,
There,
you
there,
go.
there are lots of things that can be done. You know, a lot of it is building department and inspections and fire inspections and things of that sort. So it's really knowing what's going on and those things being flagged and people being made aware of them. But unfortunately, neighbors are usually the number one. But let's definitely schedule this for the next agenda to do that. If there's something else that this board would like to work on, one of the other items I'd like to see us talk about is maybe a historic preservation plan. I don't know what's in place currently. Planning board obviously has been talking about doing a comprehensive plan. So I'm going to throw that out there too while you're thinking about other things that we should be working on, if anybody would have any interest in kind of participating in that kind of a role as well. That being,
We did the housing production plan, kind of.
same idea. It's the same idea. It would be a component part of a comprehensive plan.
Well, I think it's a good opportunity at this point in time with all of the interest in the historic district and the cultural district and the overlay with the business
Yep.
incentive area. So it's kind of a good opportunity to look at the whole thing and see, I don't know, if there are
Agreed.
opportunities to work together.
Agreed. Any other comments, questions, updates?
I
Hearing
can't think of
none.
anything.
We are, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Gail has moved, Bob has seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Technically, it's a roll call, but I'm gonna say everybody voted. Thanks, Jean.
Thank you, Jean.
Having
Bye,
fun?
Jean.
Oh, thanks,